be shy. Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
David's neighbor has now broken his silence, revealing what he witnessed about the singer's connection with the late Celeste Reavers. His account offers a sharper, and frankly more unsettling, view of what might have unfolded in the months before her death. And for David, the details don't reflect well. It's a glimpse into a hidden world. The investigation into Celeste Reavers Hernandez's death shifted dramatically after a key figure from David's neighborhood stepped forward, sharing testimony that directly clashes with the story being circulated by the singer's team. This neighbor, who lived right beside the Hollywood Hills rental where David had been residing since February 2024, offered observations that reveal a strikingly different reality of the bond between the 20-year-old artist and the underage victim. Speaking exclusively to The Sun on September 25, 2025, the neighbor stated he often saw Celeste with David and believed the two were living together like a young couple. Choosing to remain anonymous due to the sensitivity of the case, the neighbor described what looked like a routine domestic life between two people he assumed were close in age and legally free to be together. They kept to themselves, he recalled, sketching the image of an ordinary young pair. He emphasized that he never saw wild parties or police activity, signs he would have associated with trouble in what seemed to him like a normal adult relationship. His testimony gains weight when measured against the timeline. He last saw them side by side a few months ago, around July 2025, which falls squarely within the period when Celeste had already been missing for over a year. This raises the chilling possibility that while police and her family were searching desperately, she may have been hiding in plain sight, living in one of LA's wealthiest neighborhoods. The neighbor expressed shock when he discovered Celeste's real age and her tragic end. He had assumed they were simply young adults, maybe 18 or 19, a misunderstanding fueled either by Celeste's appearance or by his limited interactions with them. This seemed more plausible since he described David as courteous but distant, someone who avoided casual chats, giving little reason for deeper curiosity. Perhaps the most striking part of his account involved David's damaged Tesla, the very car where Celeste's remains were ultimately found. The neighbor remembered specifically asking about the vehicle after noticing the heavy rear-end damage. But according to him, David brushed off the question, gave no real explanation, and showed no concern for fixing the car. This element becomes even more disturbing when placed against the official investigation timeline. The Tesla sat outside the Hollywood Hills property for weeks, visibly damaged after what appeared to be a late August 2025 collision. Neighbors noticed it sitting untouched, its condition sparking curiosity, until it was hauled away on September 5, 2025. Just 3 days later, on September 8, workers at the tow yard made the horrific discovery after detecting the unmistakable smell of decomposition coming from the vehicle. The timeline carries weight because it highlights a pattern of behavior that investigators are now examining closely. On August 26, the neighbor first remarked on the Tesla's damage but reported no strange odors. The car was cited by an officer on August 27, ticketed again on September 3, and finally removed 2 days later. Due to the car's airtight design, odors may have been contained, which would explain why nothing unusual was noticed in the neighborhood despite the car's long presence. The neighbor's testimony has since been verified by multiple outlets and has triggered widespread debate across social media. Many users have labeled it as critical witness evidence that could reshape the case, while others see it as proof that David and Celeste were living openly as a couple, a detail that raises alarming questions about how adults in their circle could have overlooked or even enabled what was, in reality, a relationship with a minor. The weight of this account is considerable. It stands in direct opposition to David's representatives, who insist that his contact with Celeste was limited. Instead, the testimony suggests an intimate domestic arrangement that, given their ages, was unlawful. The neighbor's unique position living right next door adds to his credibility, as does his apparent lack of incentive to embellish or invent details. Law enforcement executed a search warrant at the Hollywood Hills rental on September 18, 2025. Yet, no immediate arrest followed, signaling that investigators are still piecing together the broader narrative of what took place during the period when Celeste was reported missing but may have been staying at the residence. The neighbor's revelations have fueled speculation about concealment and raised suspicions that others in David's orbit might have been aware of her true age and circumstances. The testimony has spread widely online, with many questioning why the arrangement was never flagged to authorities, especially given that Celeste was a missing teenager whose disappearance had received media coverage. More than rumors or speculation, this account offers one of the clearest pieces of evidence to date, providing direct observations from someone in close proximity over an extended period. The defense from David's social circle soon followed. As the investigation deepened and public scrutiny grew, his friends and associates, people who had interacted with Celeste at gatherings, began offering their version of events. Their statements, surfacing prominently on September the 25th and 26th, 2025, reflect a coordinated effort to claim ignorance, a stance many observers find hard to accept given the evidence already public. According to multiple reports, David's friends admitted knowing Celeste as his girlfriend, but said they believe she was 19, a college-aged peer, citing her presentation and alleged use of fake identification. This line of defense gained traction through exclusive coverage by TMZ and segments on NewsNation's Banfield program, painting a picture of how David's circle may be attempting to shield themselves from accusations of knowingly ignoring what was in fact an underage, inappropriate relationship.
The folks that I spoke to are in the LA music scene, so they know David very, very well. They didn't know Celeste as well as they knew David, but they did notice that he was bringing her along when they would go to parties in the music scene.
The friend's account portrays Celeste as fully woven into David's social and professional circles.
Maybe they would have hangouts after a recording session, and they knew David to be a very gentle person, is what they told me. They also described him as very soft-spoken.
What matters most is that
friends around him are extremely shocked that he's even remotely connected to this grisly murder of a 14-year-old girl. Obviously, he has not been named a person of interest, and from what we've seen, there is no legitimate connection connecting him to the death of this young girl.
the friends insisted David and Celeste were more than friends. They saw them as a couple.
Did they get the impression that this was a romantic couple?
Yes, absolutely. So the people that I spoke to that were seeing them together out in the scene believed they were romantically involved. Now look, they did not say anything about PDA, said that David was a very shy, quiet person, and Celeste seemed to mirror that as well. So they weren't out there making out at parties and things like that, but they did believe, because they would see them together so frequently, that these two were in a relationship.
The core of the friends' defense rests on their belief in Celeste's fabricated adult identity.
Where did they get the idea that she was somehow a 19-year-old going to USC as a college?
I know. Isn't that just so crazy? Because, you know, we think, how does a 14-year-old child present as a 19-year-old woman? And I was told that these people were just so sure that she was a college student. They were specific. They said that she attended USC from what they believed.
The friends' account gains weight when factoring in the venues where they met Celeste.
And also, she was seen at events where there's age restrictions, you know, clubs and parties and stuff like this, where she had to be at least of 18 years old to get in. And we do know from law enforcement sources that she did have several fake IDs as well. So she was able to get into places where there was age restrictions.
The sequence of these friendships calls the plausibility of their ignorance into question.
Charlie, it's so sad to hear that you and I are talking about a 14-year-old girl, but I keep going back to the fact that it's possible he connected with her as early as 12, and on the far end, maybe even 11. Did these friends have a long relationship with David? Like, for instance, did they know Celeste when she was maybe 13, or God forbid, even 12?
Yeah, so the people that I spoke with just recently got to know him. You know, he has been popular for quite some time. We know that he had been signed to a record label when he was underage. However, he has kind of blown up in the music scene the past couple years. So it would have been the past couple years that they did know her.
Her lifestyle at the time makes the isolation in Celeste's situation clear.
We know she wasn't really home very often because she wasn't attending school.
Well, God, if you think about it, you know, her friends would have been elementary school friends, because it's only a couple years ago that she would have been in elementary school. And if she disappeared at 13, she would have been just into middle school. And just the whole idea that we're talking about it is so uncomfortable. But I am so curious about her story and how she presents. And as you mentioned, these friends of David said she presented very much like a 19-year-old.
The friends' claims have been widely covered across multiple outlets. Fox LA confirmed that several of David's associates stated he and Celeste Rivas Hernandez were romantically involved, but insisted they believed she was of legal age, citing her use of fake identification. The Times of India added further detail, reporting that David's friends recalled seeing Celeste at parties and assumed the pair were in a normal, age-appropriate relationship.
So, you know, everything he did in his life, she kind of seemed to follow.
Do we know, Charlie, if these friends had any inkling that Celeste had actually moved into that mansion, that she was full-on a resident of that home in the Hollywood Hills with David?
Public reaction to these statements has been overwhelmingly skeptical. Online commentators have challenged the idea that David's inner circle could have been unaware, especially in light of evidence suggesting the relationship may have begun when Celeste was only 11 or 12. Alleged Discord conversations from 2022, when she was still a child, have been cited as particularly troubling, raising questions about how adults could claim ignorance for so long. Some outlets describe the friends' version of events as deeply disturbing, pointing out that Celeste was only 14 when the alleged romantic involvement first became clear. The backlash has been fierce, fueled by the disturbing age gap and the implications of a long-running timeline. Ultimately, the defense mounted by David's friends appears rooted in portraying themselves as victims of deception rather than willing participants. This defense, however, is difficult to reconcile with evidence of a multi-year relationship that allegedly began when Celeste was still in elementary school. The timeline itself has become one of the most damning aspects of the case. Rather than hinging on a single revelation, it is the cumulative weight of years of digital traces, social media posts, and witness statements that point to what appears to have been a sustained grooming process. Investigators and online researchers have pieced together Discord exchanges, archived photographs, and timelines drawn from Celeste's accounts, leading to allegations that the relationship began as early as 2022, when she was just 11 or 12. This timeline is particularly significant because it situates their alleged first contact when David was 17 and Celeste was still a child in grade school, a dynamic that only grew more troubling as the years passed. The evidence includes resurfaced Discord logs, photos of the two together, and patterns pieced together from Celeste's social media activity. Perhaps most striking is the discovery that David and Celeste shared matching finger tattoos, a detail investigators later used to help confirm her identity, and one that strongly suggested an intimate bond far beyond casual acquaintance. Experts in child exploitation have pointed out that the progression of their relationship fits classic grooming behavior. Allegations indicate the interactions first took shape in David's Discord community, where Celeste's profile reportedly listed her as over 18, signaling early attempts to mask a true age in online spaces tied directly to the singer. By 2023, when Celeste was 13 and David had turned 18, witnesses say the relationship had progressed into what they recognized as a romantic partnership. This moment in the timeline is critical because under California law, any sexual contact at that age would legally qualify as statutory rape, regardless of perceived consent. The family's statements add another vital layer to the chronology. Celeste's mother told reporters that her daughter mentioned dating someone named David shortly before her disappearance in April 2024, when Celeste was 14, though the family never met him. This aligns with indications that the relationship had been ongoing in secret for years but only became visible to relatives in the months leading up to her disappearance. Accounts also describe Celeste running away at 13 to be with David, behavior that matched reports of truancy from school and increasingly long absences from home. This behavioral pattern mirrors what experts identify as the isolation phase of grooming, where a perpetrator works to sever the victim's ties to family, school, and peers. Digital evidence supports this theory, leaving a documented trail of the relationship's progression. Viral photographs appear to show David and Celeste together, including images where both wore coordinated Hello Kitty outfits, a detail suggesting intimacy and planning. Investigators have also flagged tweets in which David allegedly referenced Celeste during songwriting, implying that she was present in creative sessions and integrated into his professional life. Even her digital footprint is telling. Celeste's last recorded Discord activity occurred roughly 3 months before her April 2024 disappearance, around January of that year. That abrupt silence suggests either a deliberate end to online contact or a switch to private channels that left fewer traces for investigators to uncover. When mapped against Celeste's age progression, the timeline underscores the full scope of the alleged violations. She was only 12 when online interactions began, 13 when dating reportedly started, 14 when she vanished, and 15 at the time of her death. In California, where the age of consent is 18, any sexual contact would fall under statutory rape statutes, specifically Penal Code Section 261.5. The span of years raises broader questions about the responsibility of adults around David who may have known of Celeste's true age. Experts suggest that the pattern reflects grooming by an older, influential figure in the entertainment industry exploiting a young fan's admiration. This disturbing chronology also complicates the investigation. Celeste's remains were found so badly decomposed that authorities believe she died weeks before discovery, likely in late August 2025 during Los Angeles' extreme heat. That timeframe coincides with when David's Tesla was first noticed as damaged and abandoned, strengthening the possible link between the car and her death. For weeks, the vehicle sat outside the Hollywood Hills residence before being towed, its sealed design likely containing odors that delayed discovery. Only once it reached the tow yard was the body found. The legal ramifications of this sequence are immense. Beyond homicide, the underage element opens the door to additional charges: lewd acts with a minor, child endangerment, and potentially even sex trafficking if prosecutors prove Celeste was transported across state lines for illicit purposes. Convictions on these counts could bring decades of prison time and mandatory sex offender registration. Public reaction has been fierce. Social media exploded with allegations of grooming, exploitation, and murder, with users repeatedly stressing the disturbing age gap and pointing to leaked digital evidence as proof of a years-long pattern. The backlash has already produced immediate professional fallout, with brands like Crocs and Hollister cutting ties over concerns about being linked to allegations involving a minor. His tour has also taken a hit. The September 17 Seattle concert was cancelled shortly after Celeste's identification, and uncertainty now hangs over future dates. Streaming figures have dipped as well, with romantic homicide showing a 15% decline in plays within 24 hours of the timeline revelations. Beyond David's career, the case has ignited wider debate over the safety of minors in online spaces and within the entertainment industry. The role of Discord servers and social media platforms in enabling contact between adult celebrities and underage fans has drawn scrutiny, with growing calls for stronger verification and monitoring safeguards. As of September 26, 2025, David has not been charged in connection with either Celeste's death or the alleged relationship, but investigators are said to be scrutinizing the timeline closely in the homicide inquiry. Authorities are now sifting through digital evidence as the case brings sharper focus to the broader issue of child exploitation in celebrity culture. The timeline that has surfaced tells a disturbing story, a relationship that allegedly began when Celeste was still a child and persisted until her death as a teenager. It represents not only a devastating personal tragedy but also a systemic breakdown in the mechanisms meant to safeguard vulnerable youth. As the inquiry progresses, this timeline will likely be central to determining potential legal outcomes for those involved while also shaping the broader lessons society must take away about protecting children in the digital era. The story of Celeste Rivas Hernandez and David stands as more than just a criminal investigation. It is a harsh reminder of how quickly at-risk young people can slip through the cracks of society's safety net. What began as shocking headlines about a body discovered in a celebrity's car has expanded into a layered account of alleged grooming, statutory violations, and institutional failures to protect a child missing for more than a year, despite living in plain sight. The neighbor's eyewitness account, the defensive statements of friends, and the damning timeline of evidence all converge on one conclusion. Adults repeatedly failed to intervene in what appears to have been an inappropriate and unlawful relationship with a minor. As the case continues to unfold, it serves as a sobering call to action about the collective responsibility to protect society's most vulnerable.